So major companies and businesses are pushing back against Donald Trump and his trade war. That's summed up today's video. And this is a list of actually major shoe companies. I want to go through it and go over the letter of what they're saying against Trump. And first, we all wear shoes, guys, so you'll probably know a lot of these brands. Adidas, Birdies, Brooks, Kellers, Cole Haan, Clarks. Again, they all signed this letter against Trump. Columbia Sportswear, Deer Stegs, Designer Brands, Eastland Shoe Company, Florsheim Footwear, Freeman Footwear, French Shiner Footwear, Johnson & Murphy, Journeys, Kudu Footwear, Loa Boots, Nike, Maiko's Footwear, Ortholite, Puma, Reef, RG Berry Brands, Rocky Brands, C-Jack, Skechers, Stacy Adams, Steve Madden, Taft, Under Armour, Twisted X, VF Corporation, which I think has a lot of brands in there. I think North Face might be in that one. You also have White Mountain and Wolverine Worldwide. Basically, all the major shoe brands that you've probably heard of and are probably wearing right now wrote this letter and signed it against Trump. It's an important letter to go over because oftentimes people ask, hey, Chris, why don't companies and businesses push back? Well, they do. And that's why we're going to look over this. So this is from the Footwear Distributors and Retailers of America, dated April 29th, 2025, dated to and sent to Honorable Donald Trump, President of the United States. So let's see what it has to say. It says, Dear Mr. President, thank you for your recent comments that you will consider tariff exemptions for those companies hit particularly hard due to the nature of their industry and through no fault of their own. As leading U.S. footwear businesses, manufacturers, retailers, we urge you to exempt footwear from the reciprocal tariffs. And if you remember, Trump basically just put tariff on everything, and a lot of it didn't really make a lot of sense. And they keep saying that, hey, we're going to bring all these manufacturing jobs to the USA. And so that would be the question is, okay, so is the plan that we're going to, move all the factories from Vietnam, India, or, China and otherwise, Thailand, and bring them all to the USA, and I guess Americans are all making shoes. Is that the plan? Now, according to the shoe companies, though, they're just like, well, this is what we're gonna see. Maybe that won't work. Given the nature of the U.S. footwear industry, American footwear businesses and families face an existential threat from such substantial cost increase. Hundreds of businesses face the prospect of closure. So basically saying, with your tariffs, Trump, you're going to put us all out of business, right? Hundreds of businesses face the prospect of closure. Tens of thousands of jobs are at stake. Many orders have been placed on hold, and footwear inventory for U.S. consumers may soon run low. So we just talked about before where Trump was saying, oh, we don't need stuff from other countries. Before you get $30 for Christmas, but now you're only going to have 2 and you're going to pay more and you're going to be happy. and literally the shoe companies are like, this is like tens of thousands of jobs, right? Orders are now being placed on hold, etc. We are, this again from the shoe companies, we are hit particularly hard by the tariff actions because the U.S. government already placed a significant tariff burden on our industry before any new tariffs are added. For example, children's shoes often have rates of 20%, 37.5%, and higher before accounting for the reciprocal tariffs. Okay, so this is, and you'll see the numbers get even bigger after what Trump is up to. In addition, some of the highest rates in the tariff code are placed on low-value shoes purchased by hard-working American families. Okay, the new reciprocal rates are stacked on top of the existing high footwear tariff rates, meaning that many American footwear companies will now have to pay a tariff ranging from more than 150% to nearly 220%. And I just want to show you guys these numbers because oftentimes, you watch stuff on the right, be your Fox Newsies and all that kind of stuff. They'll just tell you how awesome, Trump is, and we're all going to get rich, and all, tax breaks on tips and stuff like that, and overtime. Hey, work overtime, no tax on that. And that's kind of the culture that they're pushing. They're pushing this, billionaire-led world where we're all going to be working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, right? But great, no tax on overtime. But it's like, is that the world that you want? And then let's say you do get those tax breaks that Trump is promising you on overtime. But like, are we working in shoe factories or what are we doing? And then the price of said things are all going to go up in cost. I mean, this is sort of where like the numbers don't really make sense. And it's interesting when you see it like nearly 220%, right? It's quite a lot. And this is more what the shoe companies have to say. Many companies making affordable footwear, right? This is just for everyone. Affordable footwear for hardworking, lower and middle income families cannot absorb tariff rates this high, nor can they pass along these costs. Without immediate relief from the reciprocal tariffs, they will simply shudder. So the basic gist of it is, right? So Trump is essentially raising taxes, basically what it is, right? Tariffs a tax. And the companies are like, well, we can't really eat that high of a tax. If we try to pass it on to consumers, there's no way they're going to pay for said prices, right? So you're basically just putting us out of business. And that's why I had to go through all the brands. I just want you guys to see like how this stuff is. And, this is they're saying it affects affordable footwear, affecting hardworking, lower and middle income families. And that's something that when you talk about money, you talk about jobs, you talk about the economy, you have to talk about the full system, not just, hey, tax breaks for overtime or tax breaks for tips, right? Talk about the full system. Like, hey, is the healthcare affordable? Are products affordable? Like something like this. And, given the choice, I'm pretty sure Americans would prefer having shoes opposed to not shoes, or having more choice of shoes opposed to just having a few choice of shoes. But that's why you have to read between the lines when you listen to the stuff that Trump puts out there of like, hey guys, before you had $30, now you're only gonna have two, but phrase it in this way. Before, you had 30 choices of shoes, but now you only have two choices of shoes and they're all gonna cost higher. Wow, gee, great. Let's all get rich. That's how they, talk about it, the Trump world. What else does the shoe company say? They say, unlike some industries, we make items Americans must purchase and cannot finance. Must purchase. Now, I would agree. Shoes are really important. It's not something we talk a lot on the channel, but it's important. Shoes. This means we generally cannot make our products at such high price points and bake in the cost of these tariffs. Many Americans buy shoes at $30 to $50 and they pay instantly. This significant price increase from these tariffs will preclude these American consumers from having affordable footwear options, right? And, this is the kind of stuff I always want to emphasize as well. Companies, businesses, they're in the business of making money, right? They're in the business of staying in business. Not everything's left right all the time, guys. And, this is, it's important to just hear different points of view on this stuff. More of the shoe companies have to say, in addition, these tariffs will not drive shoe manufacturing back to the USA. They're saying that the shoe jobs aren't coming back. It's just not happening. It takes significant capital investment and years of planning to shift sourcing. These the new tariffs, in fact, remove the business certainty that is needed to make these types of investments and erase almost all the necessary capital. There is also a reciprocal tariff on the machinery and materials needed to make the footwear in the US. Wow. So they're just basically saying it costs too much to, like, okay, Trump, in your world, you're saying we're all going to be factory workers and you're going to bring all these factory jobs back to the USA. And this is an example of shoe companies, but many industries would probably say the same thing. It's going to take too much capital, too much money to move all these factories back. The machines cost money, right? Then we got probably the train all this said people. It's just going to take too much investment, and then you're waffling all the time because he's saying here they're talking about years of planning to shift sourcing, right? It takes a long time to figure out where you're going to get the materials, not just the factories, but you got to source the materials to make said products. It's just not happening, is what they're saying. Despite having some of the highest tariffs, higher than nearly every other product in effect for nearly 100 years, domestic footwear manufacturing has declined. We are, in fact, the one industry where tariffs do not significantly increase domestic production. Tariffs just become a major impact at the cash register for every family. I mean, like they're just saying we're not making shoes. It's not coming back. What else do I have to say here? If the current situation continues, American footwear workers and consumers will suffer. Now, I want to be clear on this. So when they say footwear workers, it's like, the Americans do design shoes, right? So just our economy has changed. We're not necessarily a bunch of factories. That's what Trump wants USA to go back to. We're more like a country of designers, retailers. We handle the logistics of, moving these things. We manage the factories in other countries. Just our economy has changed. And this idea of like we're all going to shift everything is kind of insane. So don't think that we don't have clothing, retail, say footwear related jobs in USA. We do. It's just not necessarily we're making them ourselves. It's just a different model. And that's why it's important to go over this. If the current situation continues, American footwear workers and consumers will suffer. This is an emergency that requires immediate action and attention. The American footwear industry does not have months to adjust business models and supply chains while absorbing this unprecedented and unforeseen tariff regime. Wow. They're calling Trump the tariff regime. It's right here. Again, these are business people, guys. This isn't just left, right. I just have to emphasize that because oftentimes the MAGA people say, oh, yeah, this is a bunch of lefties. Okay. I guess all these shoe companies are lefties, guys, like Adidas and your Nikes and your Johnson and Murphy and your Pumas and your Reefs and your Steve Maddens and, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, what shoe brands are you wearing? Are you going to boycott all these companies? I mean, they're just talking business. They're just like, we can't stay in business if you keep these tariffs. The American footwear industry does not have months, right? Many of our companies do not know how or even if they are going to pay the cost of already shipped merchandise now arriving on U.S. shores. Oh, I see. So if it turns, because a lot of stuff is unclear. Let's say your shoes are already on a boat from Vietnam, right? And when they arrive, you're like, well, we ordered them a couple weeks ago. Trump, moved the tariffs around, and now we got to pay like a whole bunch of a tax essentially to Trump. Are we gonna have to pay that? And for some companies, if they're operating on really thin margins, that's a very significant burden. Yeah. So, and they're even saying many of our companies do not know how or even if they are going to pay the cost of already shipped merchandise now arriving on U.S. shores. The inability to pay for these immediate and unforeseen additional tariffs place many U.S. footwear businesses at imminent risk. We are deeply concerned about imminent U.S. footwear job losses, added costs for consumers, and reduced consumer spending that will fundamentally hamper our industry and harm the entire U.S. economy. A more targeted approach focused on strategic items rather than basic consumer goods would be advance critical national security imperatives without causing unnecessary pain to American families. We respectfully ask you to remove footwear from the reciprocal tariff regime. Wow, they use tariff regime twice. And I want to state clearly, I have a little bit of bias here. I grew up in Portland, Oregon. That's the home of basically Nike, which is in Beaverton. But it's not just Nike. I mean, there's a lot of American companies that are impacted by this. And for those of you who are in the USA, you can say, hey, there's a local U.S. company that sells shoes, and we have jobs at said places. I don't think I have any friends today that. No, actually, no, I take that back. I do have a friend that works at Nike. I'm just saying that's just one company. There's lots of companies out there that are affected by this. And again, we all wear shoes. And this is a good demonstration. Well, it demonstrates a couple of things. One is it shows the cost of tariffs have real impact on people's jobs, the consumer, and then also how Trump just sort of willy-nilly did this on everyone. And I think honestly what Trump is looking for with this stuff is he wants all these companies to kiss up to him. He wants bribes, these kind of things. It is not a service to the American people. All this stuff is a service to Trump. That's what it ends up being, and to Musk and their billionaire buddies. So I want to hear your thoughts on this. What do you think about the footwear? Do you agree with them or do you disagree? Do you think Trump's right and he's going to bring back all these shoe jobs, shoe manufacturing jobs to the USA? Is that going to happen? Or do you think the shoe companies are right and it's it doesn't matter what the tariffs are, we're not bringing these jobs back? So I want to hear your thoughts. I do appreciate your time, and I'll catch you on the next video.